Hi, and welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa, and today is another magnificent Monday. I've got my friend William. You guys know him as the Emperor. I am, for I am. We are going to do a part two. Last week was so interesting about the videos that he brought in, showing the MH370 videos and some of the amazing drone footage that you guys saw. So we're going to dig in to round two of that right after this. Give us a like and share the video. Welcome back. I am. How are you?
You scared me, Lisa. I wasn't ready to go online.
No. Sorry. I have to catch you while I can.
How you doing?
Very good. Very good. So last week we had a lot of interest in the video that you and the information that you brought to us. That was really exciting to see. People really are asking questions about this stuff. You know, there's a lot of distraction right now. California burning. We have Trump being, his certification of his vote and all the noise around him being inaugurated. They've got J6 people being the charges being reversed or dropped on them. Alpha Warrior, a lot of people in our community know who that is. He's a former a Marine and a J6er who his charges were dropped today. So there's lots of stuff going on, but more and more information about these drones coming out as well. So
yeah, and supposedly there's going to be some big release of information from Dr. Greer. So this month, but I hope so. But we'll keep our fingers crossed. A lot of times those things get delayed and delayed and delayed. So you never know.
We will see. We will see.
But
I'd love to see.
So, well, I kind of got some feedback too from last week's video, and because one of the issues obviously is, are these real? Are these videos real? Especially the two that supposedly are leaked by the government, and supposedly who they believe leaked them did go to prison. And was I believe an Air Force individual. So who knows? But that's what I wanted to go over today, because that was the pushback I got. What I received was, is this video real? Is it a hoax? Corridor Crew, they're very famous for a lot of their special effects video and capabilities, and they got a really big YouTube channel. It's got like 6.5 million people subscribed to it, and they're fun guys to watch. And they supposedly had the best debunk of the videos.
Okay.
And so I thought we would watch a little bit of their debunk, and we're going to do some clips of a lot of different videos, 30 seconds here, a minute here, and fair use. We're going to be, there's no music or anything playing in the background, so don't have to worry about copyright, but they're all fair use because we're going to discuss what these individuals are saying. And we're also going to do a lot of stuff that Ashton Forbes puts back, or in his defense. But I'm jumping ahead maybe too quickly. Last week, just to recap, it was kind of like drones.
Yes.
It was the missing Malaysian airline, which was a Boeing 777. It was flight MH370. It was leaving Malaysia, going to Beijing. It had dangerous cargo on board, it turns out, which were lithium batteries that would catch fire. The plane went silent.
And you right there. There is a big rumor going around, speaking of the lithium batteries that can catch fire. So with the fires in California, There are a bunch of people that are now saying that they're looking at the fires in the houses that have been that are on fire. There'll be a house that burned, there'll be a house that didn't burn, a house that burned, a house that didn't burn. And the ones that are burning are the ones that have the smart meters that have the lithium batteries. And they're saying that the lithium batteries get so hot in the fire that sends a tremendous amount of heat through the copper wiring in the house, and that's what's burning these houses down. And that's why some houses are burning and some aren't, and that why some trees are not burning. I don't know if this is true. This is just
I hadn't heard that. It sounds like what you described sounds like Maui all over again and the blue roofs, right? If you recall that. What happened there is tragic. And in my humble opinion, a lot of it could have been avoided. Reservoir at the top of the mountain, filled and it had been empty for a couple of years. Fire hydrants obviously then running dry very quickly. But brush not being
well, they needed the money for the water for the pistachios, So
but they also put a lot of water through the upper San Joaquin Valley into the Bay Area for the endangered fish, the Delta smelt. So, but whatever. I just know that, and having seen forest fires up front and firsthand, that you just don't know where the wind's going to blow. You don't know where an amber is going to take it, and where, if it has enough, heat to land on something that's dry enough to catch fire. So these things are flying all over the place, and then the wind speeds pick up, and scatter. So there really is some randomness to it, some chaotic, chaos to it, but a lot of it obviously can be predicted, I believe. Having said all that, there are so many people that said it's going to happen, and another one's going to happen, and another one's going to happen, unless they take more dramatic steps. I remember as a kid being in Los Angeles and looking up at the hills and seeing these big wide fire breaks that had been bulldozed, and they were like lines on the hills. And I thought, wow, those things are so ugly, because I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, and mountains and snow and beautiful forests, and I never saw any big lines like that were visible. But I was told they were for fire breaks, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, because I used to hike all the time on this particular mountain. It's called Mount Eldon, and we would cross it was called Pipeline Road, but it was also a fire break. So if there was a forest fire, it would stop there before it went into private property and then hit the houses. And I was like 12 houses from forest land. So, I think they could have done more for fire breaks.
The management, yeah.
But it's a wild card. Who knows? That makes a lot of sense, though, Lisa, that these lithium batteries and the smart meters.
Yeah. When you're just saying that just now, and the tie of that with the plane, I thought that was interesting to tie those two things together.
I need my caffeine, Lisa. I gotta keep drinking my caffeine. I should have it like an IV bag and just have it like drip, drip, drip.
There's a lot going on.
But anyway, so last week, MH370 had lithium batteries on it. There's some speculation that the plane that these caught fire in the cargo hold. Remember, this is 2014, and we used to see all these fires. And the plane lost all of its electronics per se, or its communications. And they never really found the plane. They found bits and pieces. Some of the pieces are questionable. Then we talked about the New Jersey drones a little bit, and how these drones were flying so quickly. There was too many of them. I think the population got hypersensitive and was calling anything and everything a drone at night that they couldn't explain. But nonetheless, there were drones up and down the East Coast that seemed to heighten everyone's awareness. And there were drones that could not be described in a manner that would probably factually call them out as a drone or an aircraft or something of who knows? UFOs come to mind, or UAPs as they're now called. Then we talked also about the Cybertruck bomb that took that incident in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, and the ID of the individual was found and not burned up in the truck, and he had an email that was authenticated that mentioned gravitic drones, and the Chinese were launching them from the East Coast. And so with the orbs that we saw, or drones, and a wormhole open up, and drones. So it was really drones, and there seemed to be a link between all three of these items, or incidents, or ongoing investigations. So that was last week's show. So I thought, well, let's dig into these two big videos that that Ashton Forbes really pushes, and lets everyone do their homework, and lets everyone take a look at both sides of it, and you make the decision, you make the call, or you research further and deeper into the science and say, and when we're done, Lisa, you can ask me my opinion. How's that?
Okay, sounds good. All right.
So we're going to go in here and let's rewatch the video. Let me make it large, full screen. And this is the satellite video that's called Whammy, or why it's essentially looking down from the top. That blue area is really the ocean. Again, this is at night, and these satellites are extremely high. They are not like close, like say the space station. So anyway, let's watch this, what takes place with this airliner, this Boeing 777, that is believed to be MH370. That cursor mouse that just moved, that is the individual who is recording it on their computer. A first drone just flew by. Now it links up with this aircraft. That is actually smoke, probably from a fire. It's not contrails. The plane is too low in altitude. 3 drones are now around it. They're sizing it up. They're mapping it, and they're changing their direction. The plane has gone behind and in front of clouds. Now they're changing real quickly, and we're going to see the plane went behind that cloud, and now it's going to be in front of this cloud. This is important information. Keep where the clouds are, and boom, where did it go? It was like,
and their movement,
an explosion or a wormhole. What's that, Lisa?
Yeah, their movement is interesting too, because they go from like the one identifies it, then the second one comes in, a third one, they go around it like this, but then their movement changes to where, like, if they're magnets or something, like creating the wormhole theory, they circle it like this, then the one stays here and the 2 start moving in a different pattern. I mean, if that has something to do with it, if it is some kind of magnification, or
right, or they're obviously doing something,
doing their little dance to create a wormhole or whatever.
I thought the same thing. It was just 2, but it's
actually,
is it
just 2?
No, 2 were going around it, and then 1 stopped or something, like, but it's 3. Actually all 3 are constantly moving.
Okay, yeah.
What's important in the next video we're going to watch here, this time I'm going to stop and start, and we're going to listen to this Navy engineer and physicist Salvatore Paez predict what's happening, and what the orbs are doing. And this next video is, again, supposedly leaked video. This is from like a Predator drone. It's a different type of drone. You're seeing the wing and part of the fuselage there to the left in green. And it's in the area videotaping or recording what is happening to this airliner. It's as if it knew that this airliner was going to pass by and they were going to watch it. And this is believed to be a U.S. Drone. Okay, so we're going to listen to them talk, And let me see if I go this size here.
But what were your impressions when you saw specifically this video?
Can you hear that, everybody?
For the first time.
Can you hear that, Lisa?
Oh man, when I saw those orbs, I saw this thing, this one orb just start exactly what it's doing now. Just start to go around this thing. And all of a sudden it started joining another one and then another one. And I said, oh my God, they're forming a bubble of non-ionizing radiation around this thing.
Real quick, notice that, see those black lines by the drones, Lisa? The black lines are actually cooler, right? And the drones are flying into those black areas. That's not coming from the drone. The drone, it's projecting where the drone's going to go.
Okay.
There's no way what's about to happen. I anticipated. Do you understand? I knew before that black hole happened. Let's call it a black hole.
You knew that was going to happen beforehand?
I knew that would happen. I knew that would happen. That's why when I said, this is it. This is the Pais effect. I of course, it's, hubris. That's the only thing I got going for me, brother. That's not one thing I'm losing anytime soon. So,
have you ever seen videos like this? Military videos like this before? Anything even similar or remotely similar to this?
Never ever. And even if I have, because remember, at one point I would not be able to discuss because that would give away methods.
Why do you think they're convergent?
We're going to talk about this real quick. See the opening or the wormhole? We're going to talk about that in a second.
Like that at the end.
They're actually focusing as much non-ionizing radiation around this craft in order to condition the local vacuum around the craft, the aircraft, in order to form this wormhole opening for one of the back. What's a wormhole? It's really a black hole connected to white hole. Whatever has an entrance will most likely have an exit. I do not believe in space-time singularities. I'm afraid Penrose was 100% wrong from this point of view. It never goes to zero. There's a quantum bounds. Ashtekar is correct. There's an Ashtekar bounds at the Planck scale. Again, the whole idea of why I thought that they were getting close and started to oscillate around this thing is to basically create that resonance effect that would build the field to the levels it would need to break locally the Schwinger limit.
Interesting, huh?
Very interesting.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the Corridor crew, okay? The Corridor crew are these pretty amazing group of guys. They're very entertaining, and they're very good at VFX. They're VFX artists creating, CGI and all kinds of fun videos and on green screens. And but they're also very interested in alien abductions and UFOs, UAPs, and they like to go in and try to disprove them because that's what they do. They create these fictional fun videos, like fighting a robot dog or another robot. You probably seen one that was very popular, went viral, where this thing is shooting. It's a robot and supposedly shooting a pistol, and they keep kicking it and abusing it, trying to get the thing to turn on them. But it's all VFX.
Okay.
Well, these guys are pretty interesting, and they're going through these videos, and keep in mind that the disappearance happens on the 8th of March 2014, and the first video comes out May 19th 2014, 72 days later. So some speculate that these two videos are too complex for someone to create. These guys think they could do it in 5 days. 5 hours or 2 days max, recreate this. So let's hear what they have to say real quick. All right. They watched the 2 videos we just watched, and then let's listen to their commentary.
Oh, they're going to a new dimension. Yeah, they might be living it up. The YouTube channel, since this was uploaded, does not exist. No original footage, just YouTube videos. It's not good. The original footage is a YouTube video. Yeah, that's a step. Guys, is this real or is this VFX? I'm getting VFX-y vibes right now.
And the first angle is something you could do very simply. The second one is way weirder.
So people have said that because these came out so quickly after the airline disappeared, it'd be impossible to do these visual effects. How fast do you guys do shots? Real fast.
Yeah.
As little as an hour. as long as 4 to 5. You could do this in 4 to 5 hours. Okay. After analyzing this footage, it became clear to me that this is visual effects. The thing that stands out most to me is we go back to that first clip. Let's look at the background. Are we a satellite? Assume we're a satellite. Do you know something weird about the background?
Although the clouds are not evolving in any way, shape, or form.
Nothing's evolving.
It's a still frame.
It's a still frame. Thank you, Ren. Hey guys, how fast do satellites go? 17,000 miles an hour. Yeah. Would you jump to footage of the International Space Station? Oh, damn!
Okay, do you see how fast the clouds moved?
He said not at all.
Yeah. Well, they're saying in this part of the screen, they don't move at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they should be moving quick, like this.
That satellite footage, the satellite needs to be moving.
To the right.
Okay.
This is looking at the clouds from the International Space Station, and they should be moving that quickly, is what they're saying.
Okay.
And the clouds are not moving, is what they're saying that they took this model of this plane and made it like a CGI model, and they created a path for it to fly, but they're flying it over a stationary picture.
Okay.
Because the clouds are not moving, the light's not changing. They think it's actually a daytime video, not a nighttime video, because there's no shadows. And they go through a kind of a long list. We're not going to go through everything that they say, but remember this about the clouds moving very quickly. Okay.
There would be parallax between the clouds and the ground. That's a big one.
They call it parallax, by the way. That's the term that is used, parallax.
They're talking really fast.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I have this one on 2x speed, 1.5 speed. Let me slow it down for us a little bit.
You know what? That doesn't rule out that thermal shot, right? What's up with that thermal shot? Thermal cameras, like they don't have grain. It's not underexposed footage. And if there's any sort of noise pattern, notice it's a fixed noise pattern. Yeah. It's an idea of like your image is under almost like a dirty lens. How do you make it look like it's thermal? Well, there's a filter in After Effects called Colorama. What Colorama does is it goes, all right, let's take black to white, and instead of do black to white, we're going to fill it in with different colors along the way, a rainbow, a spectrum, and then that looks like our plane, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Thermal footage. It's just not accurate. However, in this case, we see the engines.
By the way, this is Ashton says is a fire on the plane. This is actually heat from the engine. And this changes. Do you see where my cursor is?
Mm-hmm.
My mouse? This is changing because the heat is changing as the plane is tilting. This orb, notice it's mostly blue, so it's cold. Just keep those points in mind.
Are hot, so maybe go in and touch up the engines, give them track some like heat points on there. One weird thing I'm noticing with the thermals is on that shockwave in the second clip. Like, how cold is that shockwave?
Wait,
is that like a 0?
So he's saying the shockwave is cold because it's black, and if it's an explosion, like in his believing, a black or explosion should be just the opposite color. It would be hot or white, because for heat, right?
Okay.
So I'm confused why it's so dark when, like, we clearly see the engines are like hot points. We're getting the yellows, the reds.
Because if it's a super dark hole, why is it so bright there? And then in the other one, it's like a pitch black abyss.
The crazy thing about thermals is they see through mist and smoke and all that kind of stuff. If we look at this clip from Veritasium, we can't see them because photons can't pierce the fog, but that deep infrared.
So he's saying photons can't pierce the fog and see the individual, but thermals can. Well, Ashton talks about, well, of course, these are spy satellites, and don't you think that they're taking that and all those things in consideration as they're taking various data from various cameras or satellite images, and they're compressing them and creating something else as to what is actually being seen, so they can see through things. We always hear about how spy satellites can see through buildings and see the people inside the buildings and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, these guys are saying, well, that's not true, because you can see through these They're saying it's just a thermal camera, but it's not a thermal camera. It's much different than that.
Red, that long wavelength of red goes.
I'm going to fast forward just a second here. We're not going to talk about the clouds. We're going to go right here.
Wave on our server. We do now, actually.
Right.
Shockwave.
Do we have the shockwave on our server? We do now, actually. I found the stock footage.
You did?
Yeah.
So he's saying he found the stock footage, and here it is. He's saying that the explosion that we see and the plane hides into the explosion or a wormhole is stock footage that he found on Reddit, and he copied it and downloaded it and put it on their server so that he could verify it. And up here is the top. Can you see this with my mouse okay?
Yeah.
You see this little dot here and see this dot here, the white dot?
Mm-hmm.
And see how the squigglies around the explosion look identical? Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to lay this on top of this one, they would be identical with the exception of color and blackening and this kind of thing. So he's saying that I found the exact image that someone used to fake the video, and that the video is a fraud. It's a fake. And Ashton has been duped because he has found an image that goes back to 1990s game, a game from the 1990s that had an explosion, and it looked like this. This is it. And someone put it on a fake video and altered it by color. But essentially it's the same one. And he's stating that this line here is basically this line, and these lines match up. And Davy Jones had Ashton Forbes on his podcast, and they discussed this. Ashton says they do not match up. We're going to go into why Ashton says they don't match up. But he's saying, I found the stock footage. And the other guys are like, wow, you proved it. It's a hoax. So that's what Corridor Crew believes. Okay. And they also believe that the clouds don't move. Are we good?
I'm caught up. Yeah.
Good. Okay. So let's go into what Ashton Forbes has to say about all this. This is the first section. He's going to talk about the clouds. Do the clouds move?
So we have the smoke dispersing in a different set of screenshots, and now we can see that the orbs are passing through the smoke, which is important because it tells us the orbs are a physical object. The orbs were not added in afterwards. These orbs are a physical object. The smoke is a physical object on the plane, and at one point, one of the orbs goes through it.
Now he's going to talk about the clouds.
Pretty huge. Oh, this was the next slide. Okay. Next, we also have moving clouds. A lot of people would say, oh, well, the clouds, they're not moving. Anybody did any forensic analysis.
Keep an eye out over here at the clouds.
Basic forensic analysis, just looking at frame by frame, would notice the clouds are not just moving, they're actually evolving. And
evolving means just like when you sit there on your back lawn and you look up at the sky and you see these white cumulus clouds, you see them growing and changing and morphing into different shapes. So they're evolving. They're not just moving from wind over over you. They're actually morphing. And the gentleman on Corridor Crew said, no, it's a static image. The image isn't changing. The clouds aren't moving. And he's using the exact same image, and he's explaining to you that they are moving. And not only are they moving, but they also are evolving. It's just hard to see, and he's going to explain why.
This is only like a 5-second window. So these clouds are 100% they're moving. They're moving and evolving. Here's it on big up. You can see it jiggling. You can see it jiggling. This is not just movement. This is
you see the jiggling
in a three-dimensional environment. Why is that important? Because that shows us there's no 2D cloud pictures that were used to make this. So this right here alone rules out two-dimensional cloud pictures, which is a tough pill for the debunkers to swallow, because then they have to admit, oh, maybe those cloud pictures weren't used to create the videos. Maybe the imagery in the videos was put on the internet in an existing set of cloud photos. And the evidence actually corroborates that.
So there's two big facts here that Ashton, I'm not going to play all of this segment, but if the Corridor Crew is accurate and right that the static background isn't moving, then without question they're right. The videos are a hoax. If this one that's done by the satellites, that is, basically the plane is light up in bright white versus the one that's in green, then if this one's a fake or a fraud, the one that comes out, just something like a week later or a month later, I forgive me, I don't remember the different times they came out, then they are definitely a fake and they're a fraud. If the clouds are static and do not move, do not evolve, it is fake. It's a fraud. Now, Lisa, I'm sure you've been on a plane, and many of us in chat have been on an airplane. And as you're taking off and you look down and you see cars moving, they're moving very quickly. Mm-hmm. But once you get up to, say, cruising altitude, if you're on a big jet and you're at 35,000, 40,000 feet, and you look down and you see a freeway and you can barely make it, you'll see maybe a semi-truck, an 18-wheeler or a car, and you can barely see them moving. It looks like they're going so slow because you're up high. The distance between you and the moving object below you, if you're high, the further up you are, the slower it's moving, correct?
Right.
So the space station is very close to us and our atmosphere. And so the clouds are moving faster because it's also moving fast. The space station is traveling at like 15,000 miles per hour, 20,000 miles per hour. Forgive me, I don't know the exact. But its movement, as well as the clouds combined in its height, makes those clouds moving fast. But spy satellites are at a much higher altitude. They're further out into space because they got their cameras focused on Earth from a distance to get a bigger picture of Earth. If you're close, you're going to get a smaller version. It's going to be smaller in the frame, but you're further out, then your frame is bigger.
Yeah, I see.
And therefore, further out, that means the clouds are moving slow, just like us in an airplane.
Wouldn't that also slow the movement of the airplane as well?
Well, it's fixated on the airplane and not the clouds. It's following the airplane, not the clouds. That's the difference. So let's look at this next point that he makes.
So where's my fire in the belly of the plane? Okay. So the fire in the belly of the plane, right after it zooms in here, is the next one. Because it's actually morphing accurately. This was VFX here. Like you don't see any fire over here in the belly. You don't see any hot smoke coming out of the plane. Now you do. You can see every time I pause it, it's a different shape. If this is VFX, there would not be every pixel unique, like every frame unique like this. See this? It would have been real matching frames, like the debunkers claim was not true. They would have found actually matching frames with the fire signature matches.
I'm sure we know what pixels are, just like, the small little squares that your screen breaks down, the pixels. So to fake this, you have to think about faking it and showing all those little tiny pixels and altering that. And that's just even more higher detail to deal with.
So to me, that's one of the, you can look at yourself frame by frame and tell this heat signature in the belly morphs, which tells us that it's smoke pouring out. It's not the engine, right?
That's another point. The corridor crew calls them contrails and not really smoke or smoke from the engines, but it looks like it. But Ashton Forbes makes a great point, and so have other pilots that have talked about this. If there was a fire within the cabin, there are two ports where the exhaust from inside the cabin come out. One's on the left part of the wing, one's on the right part of the wing. And it's going to be a lot warmer or hotter, so it would be able to be picked up a lot easier in this we're going to call it infrared, but there's a different terminology. The pilot's cabin is actually on one side of the plane that exhausts out from one side, and the other part of the cabin where the passengers are is in another section. It just is, it's part of the redundancy that's built into the plane. So it's primarily smoke coming from this plane and heat that's being captured in the image, and not necessarily contrails, because this plane was much lower than the cumulus clouds where contrails do not exist. They aren't created that low.
This is permanent stuck heat signature with engine. Okay, the next one is the orbs trail in front of it. it's important to point this out because some people this may be redundant, but for other people that are still new to this, it's like if you're waking up, if you're having ontological shock about this, look at how many different details there are that I can't explain any of these details. Why do the orbs have a dark cold signature in front of them? That's cold. Why do they have dark cold lines in front of them? To me, this is a detail that nobody could have ever thought of, even in 2024, let alone in 2014.
So he's making a great point. There's a black line in front of the orbs that the orbs are following. And what faker or hoax person that's creating this video would have thought about that?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's science behind it as well. So that's pretty incredible.
Because that's the negative ion thing that's creating the cold. Is that what they're saying?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Good. Great.
I've never read anything that's like, we're going to use a negative energy laser to make a path for our orbs. And that's what we're looking at. Some type of device inside is creating a forward path for these orbs. And I'm going to show the other version as well real quick. I think this one's good. Yeah, this one shows it real clearly. I mean, look at this. This is crazy shit. So you see that they're creating the lines in front of them, and also they seem to disperse behind them very quickly, but we can't tell. They're creating their own geodesic path there, right there. But you can see it clear as day.
Geodesic
I can't imagine
path.
anyone coming up with that. It's one of those things that's so crazy it has to be real. Like nobody can look. You can see the lines right there. Nobody can come up with that.
Wow.
I'm also not sure they could render both these environments side by side. So the next one.
That brings up our next point. The Corridor crew didn't address because they just weren't aware of all the details to it. And when Ashton Forbes was on Davy Jones and they brought up the how Corridor crew debunked it, Forbes was only 3 months into his investigation. So he wasn't further along. This is over a year now that he's been digging into it. And now he's moved really deep into the science to use science to prove that these orbs were controlled. It's technology that we have. It's not alien craft. It is actually US technology, and they're gravitic drones, just like the email from the gentleman who was or wasn't inside that Cybertruck.
Right.
So he is using, now he's moved on to science. In other words, he's not going back to try to prove or disprove these videos because there's too much science and too much in play here. Had Corridor crew really investigated the two different videos link up because the clouds are identical. When the orbs come in, the orbs are in sync from one video to the other video with the background of a cloud. So for someone to have created as a hoax the second video that comes from a different angle and the clouds match up and the orbs match up in their location to the plane at a different from a different angle, because one is looking down from a satellite, the other one is the Predator drone that's underneath the plane, and its camera is focused on the plane and the orbs. So for those two videos to be in sync through the whole process, Corridor crew didn't address that. I don't think they even noticed that. They just figured it was a set static image or screen behind it. Next one, as we're going through here.
All right. Yeah, they couldn't even imagine, so they just dismissed it, and then it was what was in their knowledge. That was static, and so they had verified to their knowledge and then dismissed it.
Agreed. And I would like for them to take another look at it with this additional information. I don't know if they will or not. Who knows? They could have been paid off to try to debunk, Ashton Forbes here in the video, or now they could be receiving payment to keep quiet. Who knows? Or they might be honest and truthful and come back and take a deeper look at it. And maybe they can rebut some of these arguments that Ashton Forbes is making. So now he's going to talk about the synchronicity of the orbs and the synchronicity between the two videos.
I'm not sure they can render both these environments side by side like this. Let me go. I'm just not sure. Like, you can even create a 3D render environment. Like, look at the orbs; they're just perfectly in sync. There's a third orb coming in, like, especially right here. You see that? You can tell that it's in sync just looking at it. How in the hell? Look at the orb that's spinning around the plane like that. How would you even do this? Even in 3D render, can anyone even do this in a 3D render environment? Even now with today's tools. So you have two videos with two different perspectives with perfectly spinning orbs around them that are also spinning around the plane. Yeah, to me, it seems impossible. It seems really, really, really difficult. Even for today's standard, this seems hard.
I will say this about Ashton. Ashton has no real strength in the area of VFX, as an artist or editing videos to this level, rendering videos or creating, videos. So, a point to Corridor Crew, they know how to do this stuff, and they've been doing it for so long, and practically some of them all of their lives. They also know what was available in 2014 as far as technology goes versus today, where Ashton is a little weak on that side of it. So I think he gets a little defensive when he's arguing his points in this regard. But it's still a valid question. How can you sync these two videos so well?
When did the second video come out?
The second video came out about either 7 or 10 days after the first. And the first one was 72 days, if I'm not mistaken, after the flight was disappeared. Okay, let's go into this one.
Okay, so here's the one I showed earlier of them in sync. So you see right at the beginning of this, you can see this orb come right there. It's in the bottom left corner right there, flying through the screen, and then look at the top left. And you can see the orb immediately come flying in as well. Like, it's literally going right past the drone's camera and then immediately orients in with the plane. That is just, to me, that's probably the craziest detail. Because we got a real.
So what you're saying is that on both images, the orb is going through that smoke behind the plane at the same point where the cloud is, and linking up those two videos with just using that one orb as a marker is extremely difficult. And again, I wish Corridor Crew had looked that closely at the rendering of both of these videos being so well in sync.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They converge. And what we find when we read these scientific papers is that we are trying to produce a Casimir shell, a situation where we have the Casimir effect is offsetting the Coulomb repulsion. The Casimir attraction, negative energy pressure, is offsetting the Coulomb repulsion. I would argue
this is over my my understanding and capabilities, but I have heard, by listening to him and listening to some of the scientists that he has on his show talking about the Casimir effect, and it's a common thread that pops up, and plasma, and I'm just illustrating how far Ashton Forbes has dug deep into this and understands it very well, to a point that he is now being able to interview and have physicists on his show that are willing to talk, just like Dr. Greer.
I have a question on and if I'm jumping ahead, please stop.
Go right ahead.
But on the picture being them believing that that's a stock image, if the picture is a frequency, if the whole is a frequency would be a repeated pattern. So it would be something that would be easily repeated. You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Maybe.
It could be. I could see that it would be something, if it's something that exists, like this cashmere or whatever, or if the black hole or the whatever that they're creating, the wormhole, is a thing that has existed in the past or that has been captured somehow or seen. If it's a frequency and it's ever been imaged before, then I could see that being a repeating pattern. So yes, there will be a
Okay.
picture of it. Maybe it's a different size, or it happened before or again, but anytime that frequency were to happen again, I would imagine that frequency looked the same.
Mm-hmm.
The shape of the outside wall would look the same because it was the same frequency.
You nailed it, Lisa. You nailed it. You really did.
Right?
There's a couple of things to your point. One, this technology and the patents that Ashton has found go way back 40, 50 years, easy. The term gravitic drone or gravitic, propulsion and these kinds of things, go back to when who is the gentleman that was supposedly worked at Los Alamos? I'm all of a sudden drawing a blank. But anyway, he and then they tried to discredit him, and he said there's even an element that they're working with for these gravitic, propulsion systems that doesn't exist on the periodic table, and eventually it does. Maybe someone in the chat will remember who I'm trying to talk or remember his name. I'm so horrible with names, but Ashton is arguing with Davy Jones. Again, he was 3 months into this thing. And when they're talking about the explosion that was captured from the 1990s and Corridor crew found this stock image that the plane flew into.
Yeah.
Well, an explosion is almost identical. When we see one explosion, the shock wave is like identical on all explosions almost, with the exception if there's like a big giant piece of strong metal, the shock wave is going to go around that metal until the metal breaks open, right? So an explosion from that point creates a shock wave every time. Mm-hmm. And if we're talking about opening up a wormhole, it's done the same way every time, and it's going to look the same way. It's like the same frequency like you're talking about here. And Ashton, in the Davy Jones interview, he said, well, I'm going to keep it G-rated, but it's like our fingerprint. Think of the explosion is like a fingerprint. Every explosion is different, yet it can still be recognized like a fingerprint. Oh, I can see that. I know what that image is, all those squirrely lines. That's a fingerprint. I don't know whose fingerprint it is. Or yeah, that's my fingerprint. I recognize my fingerprint. But anyone looking at that image would say, well, that's a fingerprint, or it resembles a fingerprint. Mm-hmm. So you nailed it in that. For example, the wormhole that's opening up is like as if it were an explosion. But remember, it's cold. It's very different. It's like cold fusion. It's not hot fusion like an explosion. It's a cold thing that's taking place. Let me play just a tiny bit more of this, and we'll jump into 3 more real quick.
Argue that more and more likely it's looking like the Casimir effect is a form of reverse gravity or reverse. If you look at electromagnetism as related to gravity, then we can manipulate one, we can manipulate the other.
So it's reverse gravity is what he's speculating here at this point when he did this video. Mm-hmm. Now, remember how they said, let's go into the remember how the crew talked about, well, we got a stock footage and the clouds I don't think I played that part, but they said that the clouds don't light up properly. They just light up in that one section where the flash is, and the cloud should be backlit, or the cloud should cast a shadow from the explosion, or that whatever image that they've posted on here, that there should be some backlit. Remember when I said, notice that the plane is flying in front of this cloud and it's flying behind this cloud, like the first cloud it's coming from, it's behind the cloud. Mm-hmm. So let me try it this way. So I got my 2 fingers, and here's the flight path of the plane, right? the plane goes between these two clouds, and right here the wormhole opens up and the plane disappears. Over here is another cloud, and the plane came behind that cloud, right? And then it goes between these two clouds.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then one cloud should at least be backlit, another cloud should be brightened, and then the other cloud where it came between should be backlit as well.
Okay.
So the Corridor crew didn't mention that at all. They didn't look closely enough at this and dig deeper into it. They just saw the flash and the clouds go bright, and they go, see, anyone can do that. I can do that in 30 minutes on the computer. When in fact Ashton said, no, they are backlit. And he's trying to explain that to Davy Jones. And Davy Jones is stuck on the idea that they've overlaid another image, even though the pixels closely match, like you said, an explosion's the same frequency.
Mm-hmm.
They closely match, but it's not 100% pixel for pixel.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at this image. Look at that.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
See, this is a cloud. Remember I said the plane flew behind this cloud in red. It's backlit right above Ashton. This is when he was on Davy Jones. The plane then flew between these two clouds.
Mm-hmm.
So this cloud would be front lit, which it was. Here's the explosion, if we're going to call it an explosion, right, or a wormhole event that was created by the orbs. And this cloud is, guess what? It's backlit, just like in my example. The plane flew between these two clouds, and so one is lit up and the other one is backlit. And notice there's no lighting here, meaning it's not lit up here because this cloud is breaking. It's like casting a shadow.
Okay, blocking it, yeah.
So there you have an example right here that of the image that there was a change in the clouds. Mm-hmm. Not only was there cloud movement and the evolution of the cloud, but during the event, the clouds displayed the proper three-dimensional look of lighting. If it were a flat image and the plane was flying over it and then they inserted an explosion,
right,
then they just lighten this area up and you wouldn't get any backlit.
Right.
I thought it was Ashton made a great point here with that. Yeah. In my other notes here, I want you to mention something else. I'm jumping ahead. Maybe don't have it, but in the explosion, the Corridor crew said that they found the stock image, and they go, that's it. It's a cook. It's a hoax. I found the stock image.
Mm-hmm.
Well, get this. He found it on Reddit, and someone had posted very quickly, hey, here's the stock image of the explosion of the mystery jet MH370, and it's a hoax. And so one of the guys at Corridor crew downloaded the image, looks at it, matches it up. Yeah, look at that. Matches up perfectly. It's well, guess what the image was? Date of that image that they called the stock image. It was dated 2015. The plane disappeared in 2014.
Oh, so it was after.
So the black hole that opens up, and they said was the stock image of that 1990s game. Ashton said no, they're actually taking it from a 2015 debunker image that was posted on Reddit, and not going. You got to go back to the 1990 image, and if you go back to the 1990 image, it doesn't match up. It matches up even less. But he says it's a fingerprint is a fingerprint. So they have that same frequency as you said.
That's interesting.
So now I'm going to blow your mind, Lisa. 1 week after the disappearance of the plane, So we're talking March 2014, before the videos were posted. The first video came out 72 days later. There is a gentleman who's a physicist, and he was interviewed on this channel. And this is going to blow your mind. She's asking him what happened to the plane, or what do you think took place here? And my apologies, I want to get this gentleman's name, but I put it somewhere else because I want to give credit to this gentleman, this physicist. Bear with me, folks. I'm sorry. It's important that this gentleman get the recognition he deserves. Mike Harris, he needs to be honorable mentioned here. This is an interview by Mike Harris 1 week after the plane disappeared.
In that way, we got a lot going on.
Can I give you my best silly wild ass guess?
Okay, sure.
Somehow somebody opened up an interdimensional portal and our plane went through it, and we don't know where it is or where it's going to come out at, but somehow it's lost for the time being. It will be found again. Fell in a hole.
Is that crazy or what?
What would make you say that?
I don't know.
Who is he?
He's a physicist. Wait till this. Wait till
Okay.
this.
All right. Well, that way,
She dismisses him.
Again, chat.
please do stay tuned in that way. We got a lot going on.
Can I give you my best silly wild ass guess?
Okay, sure.
Somehow somebody opened up an interdimensional portal and our plane went through it, and we don't know where it is or where it's going to come out at, but somehow it's lost for the time being. It will be found again. Fell in a hole.
Okay. All right. Well, that way,
So Casey Cassidy basically said afterwards that the CIA told him to shut the hell up. Told Mike Harris to shut the hell up after this. How wild is that? Nah, Mike Harris was the most accurate. This is a week after the plane disappeared. And I talked to him about it. I was on a podcast with him. Kevin Desai. Butchering his name, probably. But, I asked him, and basically he said it was an informed guess. He also had weird video about quantum teleportation and quantum mechanics on his YouTube page from, years ago. Some of these people, I don't even know, man.
Is that crazy?
That's wild. So she
1 week after.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was too much. It was too much information too quickly and too over the top. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I can't have that on my show." I think that's kind of where she was going with it.
Interesting.
But Mike Harris, and he's now tight-lipped. He's not saying anything. So one last or two more real quick. These are also going to kind of blow your mind. Not as big as Mike Harris, but it's going to get into the science of it. We only have two more, folks. I hope you guys aren't too bored with this information.
I think that's really
fascinating. I think it's fascinating. So here we go. Here's some more science for you.
I moved on. Okay.
It says that the gravitational potential arises when there is a divergence.
Hold on. Let me slow it down just a little bit, because this is deep. This is deep science right here.
Okay.
The magnetic vector potential, and when the electric scalar potential changes with time in a curl-free way. Let's break those down. So normally, as we discussed, the magnetic vector potential curls into a magnetic force field. But when it doesn't curl and instead diverges or converges, that's what scalar physics says produces a gravitational potential.
Remember, those orbs were converging on the plane. Okay. At the end, when they're circling, just before the wormhole opens up, they're mapping it and they're going different directions. Yeah. And then they converge on the plane. and the wormhole opens up.
Divergence of the magnetic vector potential is key. Divergence is a math term meaning that there is some kind of expansion or compression in the field. In other words, the field vectors point away from or towards a common center. And that's the opposite of curl, which involves the field circulating around something rather than converging or diverging from it. As for the electric scalar potential, that can also create a gravitational potential under certain conditions. Normally, as explained,
so I just want to jump in there. The magnetic vector potential, if we can have a magnetic field where we have its scalar, it's just going in or out, a monopole, then we have gravity manipulation, is what he just said right there. Well, why is that interesting? Well, because that's what we're seeing with the orbs. Like, we're seeing magnetic monopoles, magnetic fields, all out or all in. And that's why we see them in an orb formation. Like, that's why we see this plasma in a sphere. It's not a hard sphere. It's just the nature of what it was being produced there. And that's what's creating that gravitational effect. So one half of it is you can use the magnetic field to create a scalar potential. And then he says, well, we can use the electric as well.
As for the electric scalar potential, that can also create a gravitational potential under certain conditions. Normally, as explained, the electric scalar potential has a gradient that forms an electric force field. And if this electric field changes over time, then according to Maxwell's famous equations, you get a curling magnetic vector potential that produces a magnetic field. But what if the curl of the magnetic vector potential is suppressed or canceled out? What if you set things up so that the magnetic vector potential does not produce a magnetic field? A simple example of that for anyone curious.
Wow, doesn't this look like an orb, Lisa? I know this math is way over our heads.
Yeah, but the fact that the math, that it looks like the orb when you do the math out in the map, when the grid.
Right.
That's wild.
It's crazy. It's all, we only got like, I think, another minute here. Watch this.
This would be a spherical capacitor with an oscillating electric field. Then what you get instead is a changing gravitational potential. So instead of a transverse electromagnetic wave, you would get what's called a longitudinal electrogravitational wave. Transverse means that the...
Remember those orbs? How are they flying? They're flying like this, weren't they?
Around in the, yeah.
Yeah, creating a wave, a transverse wave.
Field wiggles side to side as it travels, which is what electromagnetism normally does. And longitudinal means that it compresses and expands in the direction of travel, which is what these artificial gravity waves do. I'm talking about things like ball lightning and exotic vacuum objects, the Biefeld-Brown effect, Tesla's wireless energy systems, longitudinal forces and railguns, the exploding wire phenomenon, Stefan Marinov's magnetic ionization device.
He said it. Stefan Marinov's ionization device.
Energy nuclear reactions, plasma-based free energy systems. So with that one postulate that the magnetic vector potential and the electric scalar potential can each produce a gravitational potential under the right conditions, you open the door to Star Trek level technology.
There it is, Lisa.
There's free energy. They also said the fire wire.
Right. They also talked about going back to Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
You know.
All right.
Yeah. That's there's
do harm,
digging into the science.
like,
yes, go ahead.
It can do harm just like it can do good. I think that's part of this fire that we're seeing right now. That may be part of the education of like, look, we're going to release this stuff, but you can also destroy the world with this.
Right.
So you have to be really careful with this stuff.
Right.
I don't know.
Now, I got one more that's, I think, a minute long, and it's goes back to CNN. I think it's 1985, and it's a scientist explaining what people were seeing in 747s as they flew to Japan close to Siberia.
I actually have some video analysis videos here as well. But I guess the last thing is probably the Sivers video, right? This is what we
persistent infrared surveillance.
I apologize. This is a Sivers video. This is what I wanted to show you. This is explaining how our satellites work from space to monitor us, spy on us, monitor aircraft, monitor ships in the water, monitor everything, communications as well. But we're just right now, we're focused in on movement. You know, our government has some amazing technology that's classified that we have no clue what they have. Let's forget about the orbs and the gravitic drones and all that. Let's just think about the technology, the spy technology. They know when a missile is launched and its trajectory, they can follow it through by looking at it in space, and they can see all of this. Because remember, when we talked about being in an airplane, and when you first take off, the cars are moving fast, but as you get up higher, they're moving slower. And these satellites are way out there. So watch this.
We don't need to hear it. No AARO updates. I've never gotten an update from AARO after they ghosted me, after they found something about the plane. You know, I'll let Somni explain this video after this. But we found out the U.S. government's just scanning the whole Earth. Look at how big these scans are. We have thousands of satellites, too. So the U.S. government's just scanning the whole Earth. Candace got banned from Australia. That's funny. They're scanning the whole Earth. S-Beers, exactly. Sentinel of the Night. And the planet, we just have no idea. We're just like, oh, they don't have video satellite. Why not? Well, it's just, of course they have video satellite. Look at this thing. This thing was online in 2013, fully online. In fact, they're planning a new version, new spy satellite constellation system for like 2016 or 2017. Look at that. Look at that scan. Are you kidding me? People are like, oh, a plane can disappear. I just show them this video. Like, no, it can't. And they're like, well, but it flew in the South Indian Ocean. If you're right, it flew for like 8 hours. You're telling me they didn't have any satellites seeing this plane fly for 8 hours while we're scanning it like that? Yeah, right. I'll let your friend Somni explain my position on this.
All right. So that tells you a lot right there, what we just watched and what we just saw. He's going towards the science to refute the idea that the two videos that were leaked were trying to hide that we were trying to hide that technology, or we didn't want that technology to fall in the wrong hands. And it's up to us to decide, do our due diligence, do our research, and decide for ourselves if those two videos are, you know, the missing flight from Malaysia, MH370 or not, or are they CGI? Do we really have this technology? Was it alien technology? What I didn't play for you was a 1985 interview by a CNN reporter of a physicist that's talking about what was being seen in Siberia of these cold explosions, cold blast explosions. And so he was defining the Casimir effect, essentially like cold fusion, but of explosions of that nature that was being seen and being reported by pilots, commercial pilots, as well as passengers. And it got people in an uproar. And this was in 1985 on CNN. And that was, you know, I think it was 83 that the 747 Korean airline was shot down. It had the Commerce Secretary on it, and all lives were lost. And I remember it well because I happened to be in Japan at the time. Oh. So there is a lot of information that we've just covered on, you know, the missing Malaysian air flight. And hopefully someday we'll find out what happened to those people. And it's sad because almost 300 people lost their lives, or close to 250. I think it was 239 people or souls were on board that plane that we never heard from again, other than their cell phones. So I guess the last point I want to make in this technology, and for us to think about, as it's been described to me and by Ashton Forbes, is here's a glass of water, and just this little glass of water, it was described to me that the hydrogen that's in this water, if you have the capability of free energy and you can use this for evil, for wrong, for bad, you can use the energy that's in this glass of water to boil all of the oceans on our planet.
Mm-hmm.
So free energy is not free. If this technology is in our hands or in the hands of China, that the gentleman who may have lost his life in the Cybertruck mentioned, then that's what we're up against. If the deep state has this technology, and if there are members of the deep state that are trying to keep it hidden, trying to keep it quiet, sooner or later, I think they're going to ask Ashton to shut up, or tell him to, or threaten him to, or he's going to disappear. Or maybe Dr. Greer is going to be able to release this information, or more people are going to come forward. Ashton Forbes on his channel has started to interview a lot of different physicists and putting the puzzle pieces together. So again, free energy isn't free because maybe we're just not ready for it. There you have it. That's my somber thoughts.
But the only way to like protect everyone is to make it open source and to make it free so that it can't only be used for evil.
That's what I would hope for, that the technology would be created to stop the people who want to use it for bad.
Yeah.
Think of the people who delete themselves and delete their family first. And we hear those tragic reports all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Think of this glass of water and that energy in the ether that's out there free. That's the empty space between us is the ether, and using that energy to fall in the hands of someone who is not of right mind.
Mm-hmm.
There you have it. Sombering thoughts.
Yes.
Exciting, because if we can use this for good, can you imagine?
Oh.
It's the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
We are in the Star Trek world then at that point, right? And let's hope for that. Let's hope for that.
Well, please join us over at den.social in the Mighty Lair. You can search for the Mighty Lair. Go sign up. All you need is an email. Go to layers right here, and you can find the Mighty Lair and join. And then join in the conversation. And you can give some energy to I Am for his work that he does on these, and let us know your thoughts in the comments and questions below. We'd love to hear from you, and that's a way that you can be a part of it as well. So
thank you everybody for watching and digging into this deep dive science.
We love it.
Thank you, Lisa, for having me. And I got a treat for you next week. I've already thought about next week. We're going to talk about a different technology that's going to change us politically. How about that?
Exciting. You know,
new tech changing us politically.
All right. Well, you guys join in the conversation over at den.social in the Mighty Lair, and we will see you guys next week. Take care. Thanks for watching.